Let's create a pivotal impact. Friends in the industry. So before we get started today, I just wanted to take a moment to compliment the important role carriers have in the transportation and logistics industries and voice my appreciation for the professionalism that they bring. So when we stop to consider the impact carriers have in our industry, in my opinion, it's pretty phenomenal. Furthermore, when you consider the amount of delegation that goes into successfully operating a transport business, it can make your mind spin, as you really need to be solutions focused to make it happen. So first off, the information required to know in order to even become a carrier is pretty overwhelming at times, from understanding your profit and loss margins, obviously your mechanical considerations when you're purchasing equipment, finding clients, serving clients, hiring, retaining professional drivers. Honestly, those are just touching on a couple of the components to appreciate. So when you see a carrier operating successfully, I believe it's important to acknowledge and vocalize your appreciation of their success. I just think it's absolutely incredible. But it's not just enough to say, wow, great job. But more so, I believe that we need to dive into where carriers are operating successfully so their legacy can carry on and ultimately teach others to operate successfully. So I'm Josh Hannaberry, your host here at the Truck Focus podcast. And our mission here is simple. We're connecting transportation industry leaders to the industry to help create a pivotal impact. I really believe a carrier's success can be determined by their ability to focus on solutions when a customer has a problem, which also leads us to today's conversation, as I'm super excited to speak to a buddy of mine, Colin Foster, owner of Silverback Transport and Hotshot, about exactly that. How his focus on providing solutions has led to not only the success of his business, but has really helped the success of his customers as well. So I encourage you to learn more about Silverback Transport and Hotshot by visiting silverbacktransport.com or checking them out on all major social media platforms. I've included the link directly in the show notes, so you can just simply click there and check them out. So before we get started today, I did want to take a moment just to say thank you. So if this is the first time you've ever joined the Truck Focus podcast community, checking out the podcast itself, I really do welcome you to our community and to our dedicated community that continues to show up, taking the time to listen, but also applying the knowledge shared by our industry leaders. I also want to say thank you. It really does mean a lot knowing that you're creating a pivotal impact in the lives of others throughout each day's interactions. So throughout our conversation today, I do ask you to consider, okay, what is Colin sharing that you can actually apply in your own business or in your own journey in the transportation industry? Make some notes, make some thoughts, and at the end of the episode, let me know. Send me a comment, send me an email. Just let me know again, what has Colin shared that you're like, hey, this really created an impact in my journey, or it will. And again, we just really want to know so that way we can track. We want to track to see how our community is doing. So again, thank you for that. I'm super excited for the impact this conversation is going to have. Let's get to it. All right, Colin, super jacked for our conversation today. Super grateful. Obviously, you're taking time out of your very, I'll say, insanely busy schedule. Just taking the time joining me on the Truck Focus podcast. And I'd say I admire you from afar for a while, again, from a social standpoint, where I'm a big pictures guy myself. So when I get to see the different types of gear you're hauling, I get super jacked. But then when we started talking and we realized, oh, we're actually connected in our backstory, I thought that's pretty cool too. Such a small world, man. So it's just, I'm really grateful to have you on. Excited to talk about just, what you're seeing in industry, obviously what you're seeing just through your own business. And I'm excited to talk about specifically Silverback Transport and Hotshot and just how your business came to be, but really what you're seeing in industry, what you're serving, or I guess who you're serving, what you're hauling, and really dive into it. So welcome, my friend.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you taking your time to have me on here too, man. So I'm excited.
Good. Yeah, if you weren't, I'd say, okay, that was fun. Have a good day. But good. So no, it's important. It's important. And I think just right out the gate, the service that you provide, the level of service, but also like what you're hauling, the commodities, the customer service, the confidence that you're bringing to industry is it's so crucial. So when you said yes, like obviously to come on the podcast to me, I'm like, yes, because I want to showcase this type of leadership that you bring. And I don't say that to fluff you up. I just, from our listeners' perspective, I want them to really take into consideration, like, man, you know what you're doing and you speak with confidence, you lead with confidence. I see you helping other carriers do the same. Like, that's really powerful. And I think, again, that we can use this conversation to showcase that. I think it's phenomenal. So I am really grateful.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, man. I'd like to think I know what I'm doing.
Well, I guess it is Wednesday, so we'll see what happens on a Thursday. But no, that's good. So
No
just to start us off, why don't you kind of give us a rundown on just a little bit about your journey, who you are, and what you're up to right now?
Yeah, no worries. So, like I say, my name's Colin. I own and operate Silverback Transport and Hotshot here out of the Vancouver area. Been in business now since 2017, so just a little over 5 years now. A little bit about myself. I actually grew up in the transport industry. My dad drove truck for the same company here in Vancouver for 42 years, which is like, that in itself is kind of crazy when you say it out loud and listen to it. So I think my dad's got like 2.5 million miles just in local miles over a 42-year career, which is kind of neat. So grew up around trucking, but didn't go into it right away. I started out in construction and was in that, and then was actually on the tools for about 7 to 9 years, and then made the shift to construction sales, which is ultimately where, I landed up in the rental industry, much like yourself. And then, just kind of after that industry, just started a transport company and said, well, let's give this a go. Let's see what happens. So here we are.
Good. That's awesome. So first off, huge props to your dad. The fact that many miles and that long of a career, I think that's pretty phenomenal. So huge shout out to him.
Thanks,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's something definitely to be proud of. So when you think about when you were young, you're a young lad, that was his profession. Do you think that influenced your view on industry or industries, maybe just kind of when you think back, like, wow, that was really cool being around if it's the truck? Because what was he hauling, like tractor trailer or just truck, or what was he doing?
No, so my dad, he actually drove a 5-ton or a tandem axle box truck just locally, kind of doing first mile, last mile stuff. But his company did a lot of, I don't want to say pickup and delivery locally, but they had a few contracts back in the day with their customers. And so he actually did the island run twice a week. So every Wednesday and Saturday for about 30 years, he would go over to the island. So when I was a kid, we got summers off, when you want to hang out with your dad, you jump in the truck and away you go. So like, I have tons of memories of, we'd go to the island and jumping up in the back, and like at the time for those runs, it was like a lot of print magazines, TV Guide for back in the day. We secretly, we never paid for TV Guide for about 30 years. So, so yeah, like I'd be out there, go on trips with them on whichever one it was, and jumping up in the back of the truck and making sure we had the right stuff and the right product was going to the right place, and learned a lot about customer service. My dad's very customer service oriented, and just kind of the processes of how everything goes and making sure your paperwork's all done. And so it was neat. So we did, it was fun and just, I don't know, it was different, but it definitely for sure shaped how I viewed the trucking and the transport industry, because like you grow up around it. And so obviously how you grow you develop a love of trucks and big trucks and horsepower and black smoke and, all the typical things every little boy loves, right?
Yeah, man. That's a good run too. And I remember the first time going on the ferry, and you're kind of like, man, this is awesome. So yeah, being able to do that again as a kid. I was much older when my first experience was. So again, being in that environment, even helping, understanding at that age customer service, like, okay, what does that mean? Well, treat people well. Oh, okay. So I can see that really establishing in your core being too, which is cool.
Well, it's cool to see how like my dad interacted with shippers and receivers, and just the conversations. And like most of the guys my dad dealt with, at least when he was going over there, because he was the same delivery person each and every time, you get you'd like to think people treat other people with respect, but like, because it was the same time, like or the same person doing the deliveries, he built relationships with them and got to know them. And, because most of the places he went to, not a lot of turnover rate. So like everybody was kind of the same. So it was neat to get to see that you can build those relationships, which has actually kind of helped me in my company and in my business with just developing relationships with shippers, receivers, salespeople, just, everybody that's involved in the transport industry, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a huge point. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask is, so when you're viewing your customer base now, again, similar type professionals, where maybe they've been there for 20 years and they've been the same shipper or receiver. And when you can come in and you're just like, well, I'm going to up the ante in my customer service, or I will park exactly where you want to, or where you want me to, instead of, no, screw you, I'm going to go park over here. Like, it's those little things, but it makes a big difference. And again, the fact that you can see that at a young age and you can see the success in that, I think is really powerful too. So when you're navigating your conversations, I'll dive in here right now, and then I want people to know they can learn more about your company itself. But
sure.
when you're interacting with people and you're thinking about customer service, is that front of mind all the time? Like, I'm going to provide the best possible customer service, or how do you kind of scale the importance of it?
I think it breaks down to just stemming back to like watching my dad and learning that. Whereas like I've always thought and had the thought process and the mindset of, well, how would I want to be treated if I was in the reverse scenario, right? Like if I was being approached by somebody, like we've all been there, where somebody is just having an off day and they're, or something bad just happened. And obviously you don't know the whole story, but you want to provide the best service you can with every interaction, whether you're doing business direct with that person or whether you're doing indirect business or referring them to somebody. You want to make sure you can give them the best service you can, because I'm a big believer that it will come back around at some point. And so I don't think I actually think about it. I think that's just who I am as a person. At least I'd like to think so. My wife will tell you different in some scenarios, but
remember, it's blue, not yellow.
yeah, exactly. Right. So, but I'd like to think that just being a good person overall, and just being nice and friendly and genuine and just, I don't know, doing a good job, really. Like our goal when we go out, literally, like the motto for our company is, we're here to help. Like that's our motto or mission statement, whatever you want to call it. That's what we, excuse me, that's kind of how we operate, is we're just here to help. And so if we can help in any way, shape or form, no matter what it is, that's just our goal, even if we're not the ones doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And that really speaks volumes, I'd say, to your character too, where it's not always about I. A lot of times it's about we. And totally. It's okay, how do we help? I really when you first told me that too, I had the same feeling. I'm like, I admire that, because again, I think a lot of times it's easy to be selfish and easy to be maybe a little egotistically hurt if you didn't get that job or you didn't get that run. But it's like, okay, well, I can still create an impact. So I right away, I could tell that we were on the same wavelength with that.
Yeah, totally. Like just a quick reference to a story. We had a broker that we worked with that she was working at a different company. And now when we were working together, now she's working at a different brokerage. She asked us if we run into California, and it was like it was a submarine part going to somewhere in California that's not accessible by truck, or by big truck at least, has to go in a small truck. And like, we don't run to the States, not yet. So I referred her to a company that she has worked with in the past, but had forgotten about. And I said, yeah, just call them. They'll help you out. Shouldn't be a problem. And away you go. Right. So
powerful.
2-minute conversation to refer somebody that can do the job, to make sure that their customer is taken care of. Cause that's really what I care about, is making sure that the customer is taken care of. Right. So
that's right. Yeah. I think that's powerful. Okay. So before we go too much further, where should people go if they want to learn more about Silverback Transport and Hotshot?
You can find us on all the social media outlets. We are on LinkedIn, like personally and company, Instagram, Facebook. That's kind of really it. We have a website, silverbacktransport.com. You can call me if you want. I'll tell you our story. Like, I don't know, it doesn't matter to me. But yeah, for our online presence, we are on like all social media platforms, all the major ones, I should say, with the exception of Twitter. And yeah, that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to include the links too, because it's important. So if it's a carrier maybe looking for some guidance, like, hey, this is new to me, what should I do? Or if you're a some form of supplier vendor and you're looking for a trusted carrier, Colin, you definitely have hats off my support. So I would highly recommend that. Yeah, if that's your position and you're like, okay, he's kind of a funny guy, I guess. Let's give him a shot. He'll definitely do good. So it's
Thanks,
good.
man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So how did you go from, obviously a little bit of the backstory? We both worked for the same rentals company years ago. How did you transition from rentals company to, you know what, I'm gonna start my own trucking company? Like, can you walk us through that story? You can keep it high level. Like, you don't have to, we don't have to name drop, nothing like that. More so just, I think it's really important for other people that are like, man, I've been kicking the same stick for a long time. I want something new. But how did you make that decision and then go about creating your own company?
Yeah, totally. So, for the rental company, I was in the sales division. So as a salesman, you're kind of involved in almost everything, right? So what had happened is obviously we had all our own transport trucks to move all our own equipment, but from time to time you need to use those outside carriers. And so occasionally we would have to use them. And it started out we were going to do stuff locally. And so when we were working at the rental company there, we had to call outside cartage and just listening to them give us a price. Like, I'll never forget one time we had one company move a piece of equipment like 3 kilometers down the road, and it was like $250. But learning it from being in the industry, like you're paying for time, right? Like you're paying for them to come from their last delivery to you, pick up, drop off, and then get back to their next delivery or whatever it was, right? And then so had a few, like we had seen a few prices for a couple moves that were local, and I was like, okay, there's like some serious money to be made in this industry, right? And so after parting ways with them, I had applied to a couple other jobs, but I was like, I had like this burning desire inside of me at one point to like try it, you know what I mean? Like to just go for it and see what happened. And so yeah, just kind of after we parted ways and a few failed interviews, here we are.
Powerful. Powerful. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that's really important because, again, lots of people navigating careers, maybe they're not happy. Maybe they decide, you know what, I'm going to go pursue something else, whatever it is. But yeah, when you have that burning desire, it's good to know that, hey, I can go make this happen. And having some market research done ahead of time is helpful too, obviously, knowing price points and stuff.
Well, I think also too, like a bit of an advantage growing up in the industry. Like one of the to be honest, like straight up, one of the reasons why I didn't get into the industry is my dad being a company driver for 42 years. Like he didn't really make a lot of money. Like he wasn't top paid, like, any of that stuff, which, it is what it is. But like, that's what kind of deterred me. Cause like when you go into construction and I went to be a carpenter, like I made decent money by the time I was like 22 years old. Like I was making like $28 an hour. And that was like 2010 area. So like, it wasn't bad money, but it wasn't like great money now. Right. So it kind of deterred me a bit. But then when you start seeing what the owners actually make or what you're charging, I shouldn't say what the owners are making, but at least what the companies are charging to move that stuff, you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. There is opportunity there for sure. So when we're looking at industry right now, do you still see, again, you're not maybe the bushy-tailed, green-eyed right out the gate. Maybe you still have that type of attitude, which I would be really envious because 5 years in, lots of life cycle happens. But what opportunities are you seeing right now from your scope? Is there still like a boatload of equipment that always needs to get moved? It's a tougher market, so you got to be really mindful of pricing, or how are you finding things?
I think we're kind of in our industry specifically doing hot shot and expedite freight and last minute moves. It's very like our customer base, not all of it, but a portion of our customer base is we have a machine down that's costing us $100,000 an hour. I don't really care what it costs. Just get it here. You just kind of have to be open to it, but you also have to be a little bit like educated too. You can't just like jump into it and think like this is going to work. Everything's going to be great. it's all going to be happy clappy and like we're going to be millionaires in 2 nights. No, it's just not going to happen, right? But I think there is plenty of opportunity for everybody. Like I think each market is different in certain aspects. Like I'm sure, like for us in the hotshot industry, we kind of have to keep a pulse a little bit on the full truckload market, because typically on par will be pricing for full truckload from wherever to wherever. With obviously there's exceptions. Like you're not going to go here to Toronto for a full truckload rate, because especially if it's like a single pallet, like you got to drive there and drive back, right? So like the likelihood of you trying to find a single pallet, like, and even then a single pallet LTL from like Toronto to Vancouver is like $500 or whatever it may be, right? Like, so you gotta be mindful of that. But I think there's plenty of opportunity for everybody and everything, in every aspect of the trucking world. So it's just a matter of just being aware of it, right? So yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. And that's really good to know. I think you're right. You can't have that expectation of, okay, I'll do two trips. Now I'm a millionaire and I'm going to retire and I'm going to tell everyone about it. And I'm going to create an ebook series and coach people for 10. Just kidding. We see that far too often, right? Yeah, exactly. Oh, I've done this once. It's like, oh, hooray. So okay. So prior to us recording, you were talking about something too, though, where if a customer's in a jam, they have something that's broken down, you need to get on there on the fly. How do you navigate that space? Like, I think that's really fascinating. And I wish I would have caught that prior to, again, whatever, you can't read the time, but it's really important. So when you're navigating with your customers, you're building these relationships. And then, so again, we'll go back to construction and something's down. And because that's down, it's costing them money. So they need to get something to that location ASAP. How do you manage that relationship and build that trust so they know that, hey, I can call Colin right away, we can get this done? How do you navigate that?
I think it's just like building any relationship or any friendship. It just comes with time, conversations. Like I think, well, I shouldn't say I think from experience, it's those 2 to 3 minute phone calls that you get where you can ask a question and you get to know the person, right? Not always is that going to be that going to be the case, excuse me, but like you're gonna, if you got a dead spot in the phone call, you can ask, be like, hey, how's your day going, or blah blah blah, or just standard relationship building stuff. But I think ultimately at the end of the day that part helps, but at the end of the day it's following through on what you say you're going to do, open communication, getting the job done, and just being transparent with your customers. Like if something happens out on the highway, you tell your customer, you tell the receiving end. Like the more, and again, I think this comes back to customer service, the more you can help take off the plate of your customer, the more they're going to remember that they can trust that no matter what happens, no matter what the scenario is, when they call you, you're going to get the job done for them. And if something happens, that you're communicative about it, that you let them know ahead of time or while it's happening, but like come with a solution. Like so many people have come to me with like, hey, this happened. And you're like, okay, well, have you thought of a solution for it yet? Well, no, this is just the problem. Well, it's like, okay, well, like, I get that, but like, let's try and solve this. Like before I go to the customer, let's have a solution in place, or at least an attempt at a solution to see if that will work for them. If not, we'll go with the solution they like, right? Like just solution seeking mindset versus problem focused mindset, right? So
huge. Yeah, far too often you get the latter. You get the, oh, this just happened, and okay, like what are we gonna do to fix it? And yeah, I like that, and I noticed that with you right away too. So I'm glad you went there. And customer service is obviously a huge part of our industry. It's really the foundation of success within our industry, transportation. When we're talking about, okay, well, if you're just driving around with an empty trailer, you're just burning money. You're not making money. So customer service is key. So when you're faced with situations where people are coming to you with problems, that's normal when you're a leader, or you're faced with your own challenges, is it natural for you to go right to solution mindset mode? Or do you find you have to like take a bunch of deep breaths and coach yourself? Yes, we can get through this. Then you go to solution mode. Or how do you navigate in that space when people are coming at you with different problems?
I'd like to think we go solution right away. I mean, I think I learned through construction that if you take 5 minutes to plan and prep and think, it could save you hours and hours and hours on the back end. It's kind of the same thing like in our industry now with trucking. Like if you know there's a potential snowstorm through Rogers and they could potentially shut the highway down with high avalanche risk and you're going to Calgary, maybe you should go through Edmonton. I mean, it's a bit longer, but if you got time sensitive freight that needs to be there next day, I mean, obviously you can't outrun the clock for hours of service, but you can communicate that to your customer and say, hey, there's a high risk of avalanche, there's bad weather, there's a possibility they're going to close the road. And you just say, like, you explain to them, like, we could go this way, and if we get stuck, we could be there for who knows how long, or we can go the long way, but there's no bad weather supposed to be that way, and we'll be here by this time. It's a bit later than you want, but at least you're going to get your freight tomorrow or whatever the time frame is, right? So I like to go solution seeking right away, just because, okay, we've established this is the problem. We have all the information we have so far that we would like to think that that's all the information that we need. Let's just solve the problem, because why are we going to dwell on something we can't, like, that we can somewhat control? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Key, man. That's really key, because I think, again, it goes right back to communication. And when you can have an open conversation with your client and say, this is what we're up against. I'm not hiding anything. It's not about an agenda. It's just, this is the facts. I think that's really good leadership. And then it's nice when you can be confident as, no, we're going to solve this. We got this. But again, you have to go through those to actually build that confidence. But that's nice to hear, because again, when you I try to put myself from a listener's perspective too. And it's like, okay, what is industry up against? It's up against exactly what you're facing, and you're helping people overcome, and you're overcoming. So I think that's really important to paint that picture. And you did a good job with that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. I think it also comes from experience too. Like there's some like some people just don't have the experience that others have, whether, you know, depending on what role it is you are in the, like in your carrier side, right? Like, you know, some dispatchers have never been on the road. They have no idea what you're dealing with. Like you have no idea, like when you got to throw chains, depending on your experience level, like you could be out there 2 hours throwing chains. Meanwhile, your clock is still running. Right. So like, it's just, I don't know. It's just some of those things, like solution seeking comes from experience, you know what I mean? And typically not good experiences either.
Oh yes. I hate chains. That's my least favorite part of the transportation industry, being very frank, is the thought of chains. Almost thought I was going to, well, my finger, a normal pointer finger, I don't think is supposed to bend all the way backwards, but mine was. Oh, I was so angry. Anyway, story for a different day.
Oh man, yeah. I'll tell you a story later about a set of chains with my wife. So no, but not not like that. We call that a slip.
That is funny. Oh, goodness.
Oh god, that was bad.
Awesome. I love the podcast, man. It's awesome. So when you think of the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome in business, again, so many problems that you have to overcome in trucking, but what would you say has been the most memorable challenge you've had to overcome that acted ultimately as a learning opportunity for your journey, obviously, as your own trucking company?
I think overall, the hardest thing I've had to learn is just how big the industry is, and just, you know, nothing. Like when you think you've learned a bit and you're like, yeah, we're gaining a bit more knowledge, you just realize, like, man, you've learned like 1/10 of 1% of what actually happens in the transport industry. Because like I guess we're kind of, because we're so specialized, we don't deal with like certain things that brokerages or big carriers deal with, where, like, you know, they have a contract with whoever and it's like 800 truckloads a month. You know what I mean? Like we just don't deal with that, and the tech that they have to have involved and the number of people they have to have involved, and just like, you know, like companies that are here that have trailers sitting in the southern United States that, like, you have to manage. You got to make sure the CVI is up to date. And I'm like, man, I got one truck and one trailer that's mine, and that's all I got to worry about. I know exactly where they are at all times. You know what I mean? Like, just yeah, like I think the biggest hurdle was getting just how massive the entire industry is as a whole and realizing that like nothing, right? So I think that's the biggest one. And then just
Yeah.
kind of trying to learn to, I think, work with the industry too, because you when you get into it, you realize just like you're just small and like insignificant and tiny, but somehow you provide a service that is massive to huge industries. Like I'll give you a prime example. We got called yesterday from a customer we serviced last year as a helicopter company, and they have fire season contracts to put out fires for the forest fires. So their helicopters are not allowed to be down, grounded, anything like that. So like they called us last year for a fire extinguisher up to Prince George, and they're like, yeah, if the fire extinguisher isn't there, we're grounded, and just all this other stuff. And the same thing, they called us last week for a starter up to Manning, Alberta, and they're like, yeah, like when we need this, or there's a potential that we're going to lose out on X number of dollars per day. They're like, so your cost is irrelevant to us losing this contract. Or not irrelevant, but like, like we don't care what it costs to get it here. We just need it here, because if we don't have it, like we're effed. Right. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that, to me, I call that a pivotal impact, where you are creating a huge impact in your space. So it's from a client's perspective, it's nice to know, again, you can pick up the phone and that you can say, we are in a jam, help. And you're like, okay, like, let's make it work. Like, we'll figure it out. And again, it goes right back to that communication, building trust, offering like optimum customer service. And yeah, the impact that you're having, dude, is just huge. So it's just really
thanks,
cool to
man.
see. Totally. Totally. Yeah. I think yeah, we'll never know the ultimate, like when I think of the lifespan of a trucking company, you'll never actually know how many people you've had a positive impact on ever. But the peace of mind for that person on the phone, especially if they have to report to a boss to say, our guy's got it, he's on the way, or we're figuring it out, that sleep at night is worth more money than someone could ever pay you. So the fact that you can cause that, that's huge.
Well, totally, man. And I appreciate that too. Like we just, again, it just stems back to our entire goal as a hotshot and transport company is to we're just here to help. We're just here to help make your life easy. We're here to help your customers succeed. We're here to help in any way, shape, or form that we can. So that's our whole goal.
Powerful, powerful. So something that when we first had our conversation, again, I was, as our listeners are probably piecing together, anyone that's listened to me before, I get really jacked when I can tell other people care. Like, I think that's really important. And so when we were having our initial conversation, I was just like, yeah, dude, like you really got going on. You got confidence. You're not afraid to fail. You'll fail forward, all these good things. And when we were talking about mindset, you're also really hitting some key points. So we talked about the success mindset. How about goals? How are you from a goal mindset? Like, you're comfortable resharing, because we touched on it a little bit, like I said, when we first started chatting. But when you're thinking about goals and helping other people accomplish their goals, your own goals, how important is it to you to make sure that you're knocking those out of the park?
Yeah, I think I'd like to think that I have ambitious goals. I mean, I don't think anybody starts a company to be like, I'm just going to start a company and we'll see what happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I tried it and yeah, that didn't really work for me. But no, like, as a goal from us, like when I first started, the goal was to just like, okay, I'm going to start my own trucking company, and if I make 120 grand my first year, awesome, great. And like, we didn't, because we were new and didn't know anything and didn't realize like, oh, there's all these expenses we need to have, and there's things we need to have in place in order to be like legal. Like, there's a couple things I knew, but whatever, it is what it is. We all learn. And so yeah, like the goal was just never, like, the goal was obviously to make money, but like the goal was never really to actually just be about money. The goal was actually to like I said, help people. And I think that's where the growth in our company has come from. I mean, we're obviously not anywhere near the size of any of the hotshot companies in like Alberta. And there's only like two or three of us here in BC, at least in the lower mainland. But just to help people genuinely achieve it. So, but I mean, obviously, as you grow, we have like there's personal goals that I have within the company as well as like financial goals that you want to hit. So like, um, you know, for this year we've set a goal of like 2.5 million somewhere in there in sales, which we're not tracking for yet fiscally. But we won't be far off. You know what I mean? Which, shoot for the moon, land above the stars, still in
Huge,
space, right? So
huge.
um but yeah, just like personal goals is to like to bring on more people and put the right people in place. Like I think I've seen companies that, which I mean I'm kind of somewhat guilty of, but like you just start. So many people say they want to start, but they actually never start. And oh, it'd be nice to do this, or it'd be nice to do that. And it's like it just never gets off the ground. Whereas I like, man, I parted ways. I had $8,000 and I started a trucking company, and here we are. You know what I mean? Like, like the way we went. So, but like as for like company goals, obviously, like we have the sales figure we're trying to hit, but also wanting to like add the right people and have the right infrastructure to grow properly. I think some people just look at growth and like, we're doing more volume, we need more people, but don't actually put the right people in the right spot. And I'm big on, with having help, with helping our customers, with also having people help the company, is having the right people and putting people first. I like, obviously you need to make money, but I don't give a shit about money. Like it comes, it goes, it moves, it flows, like it is what it is. But having the right people in the right place in all aspects of a company is huge, because having the right person helps your company grow and helps your company get to that next level, because you can trust them to do what you need them to do without question, right? Like obviously some people, like some people need their hand held a little bit, but that's okay. Eventually they'll grow into the spot through experience or bad experience or whatever, but they'll eventually get to where they need to be, that they'll be a huge asset to your company, right? And I've seen that through other companies, through other people that you've actually interviewed on the podcast, their companies, and just observation through other companies. And I think it's interesting too, though, because you have in the transport world, like you have the old guard, the older generation that's starting to get out of it, but they still operate the way they operated in like the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Whereas you have guys like our generation that are like, man, that's so archaic. Like you can't treat people like that. Like it doesn't work. It doesn't exist. Like people aren't going to respect you for that. And you need to have, like you have kind of like the changing of the guard where it's just different now. And you gotta be able to adapt to that. Right. So, but yeah.
So good. Such strong leadership. And yeah, when you look at the difference of generations, the difference of culture, obviously male, female, we all look at the world differently. And when you're in the environment that you're in and you can lead the way that you lead, I think that's really powerful. And the fact that, again, money is awesome, but I like creating value. And I think value is a lot easier of a sale. When we're talking sales, it's a lot easier for a culture for people to buy into. Is no, you're creating value. And I really just, again, I admire that. And I see it all the time. I think that's what's super cool too, is you build strategic partnerships and so-and-so needs help moving this. Awesome. Or you need help because your client needs to move these. Awesome. But yeah, you're able to really lead with that, and you can really help people really push through stuff. I think that's a really good quality that our industry really needs for the long term too. So I wanted to point that out.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So I kind of have a couple staple questions before we end that I think are really important. They mean a lot to me, so I'm hoping that they mean a lot to you. No, I'm just kidding. But but when you think about, we'll stick on leadership for a second, and I talk about legacy all the time. And when I talk about legacy, I don't mean when you're dead, what you're remembered for, that kind of thing. Like that's part of it, sure, but that's not the focus. The focus is you go into maybe a phone call. Maybe you can't be there face to face. You're on a phone call. They have a problem. You chat with them. They hang up the phone call. How did you leave that situation? That's legacy. People will remember how you made them feel. And when you're in your space, I can see you being a rock star. I can see you being really focused on solution, but are you also mindful of the impact you're having on that person? Not necessarily just the problem that you're helping fix, but on that person. Is that something that you're mindful about?
I think if we stem back to like what we were talking about at the beginning, just watching my dad with customer service and how he left each person, like when you see that interaction as a kid, and even though you didn't know you were going to be in the transport industry years later, you just, every time my dad said goodbye to somebody, when we were a shipper, receiver, whatever, it was always a handshake. It was always a, thank you very much. You have a good day. Just general common courtesies that I think, being a decent human being is, right. And so, to be honest, I never really actually thought about the legacy impact in that aspect. I think again, it just comes from being who I am as a person, that you just want to be a good person, really, and just make sure, I don't want to say make sure, but like when you're done a conversation, it's okay, thanks, appreciate it. Or, all the conversations obviously go different ways based on how they go, but just saying thank you, saying please, like
Goes a
just,
long way. Yeah.
yeah, just, even the small things, like when you go order your coffee at Tim's or Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever it is you get your coffee from, like just saying good morning to the person. If you're face to face, like just saying good morning to them and seeing how they're doing takes 3 seconds. So like, because I can't tell you how many times I go into like a Tim's and the people in front of me or behind me are just like, the person says hi and they're like, oh, double or blah blah blah, and they're like they're just grumpy, they're tired. I mean, I get it, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it is what it is, but like it takes 2 seconds to be a nice person, and then that person cheers up. You know what I mean? So I just think, you usually get remembered for that. Like, I don't know, just being nice and being a good person at the end of every interaction is just who I am.
Yeah, I do.
It's just something I don't think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I will speak on that, and I will really amplify that in you as a person, but the ripple effect of that, where I think far too often people don't pay attention to that. They say, you're here to serve me, so serve me. It's not, we're human beings face to face. Good to see you. Like, so yeah, I really agree with that, because you're right. So if you say hi to that person, you say good morning, you say thank you, you say, oh, this is going to be great, thanks, whatever you say, then that, if it's the teller or the cashier, when they talk to the next person and they have that little in their step because you helped empower them with that, or if it's the shipper and receiver, they really don't want to be there today, they have a sore back and something's happening at home, you show up, instantly they're just like, oh, Colin's here, it's all good. And when they can actually expect a handshake or they can expect a hi, it really does change the narrative of not just their workday, but actually goes home with them. So there's a lot of, I guess, the psychology behind the human interaction that I really consider when we're having even these podcast conversations, because it's like, no, you're a leader, dude. You are a leader. And if it's in Tim Hortons, or if it's with your customer, or if it's how you drive on the road, you are really shifting the way people perceive transportation, but also from a customer experience standpoint. I think that's really huge. So anyway, I go on these tangents all day long, but I just appreciate it. It's good.
Well, someone put it to me this way. Like, someone said that you light up a room in one way or another. You either light up a room when you walk in, or you light it up when you walk out. And you want to try and make sure you're the person that lights it up when you walk in the room, because like, like just, I mean, we've all know people that are just the people that are, the room lights up when they leave and you're just like, oh, whew, thank God that person's gone. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know. I just think being a good person at the end of the day is all anybody asks for. Right. And that's all we want to receive from, an interaction from somebody else. So, and if you can make somebody laugh, great. Then they'll really remember you.
Totally agree. Completely, man. No, I think that's a good statement. And again, that's a massive driving force of the Truck Focus podcast, is introducing leaders to industry to create a change. And you've shared a boatload of value today. So before we end, I want to ask you one more question. When we're looking at professional drivers and the fact that it's in your blood, your dad was one for 42 years. I think that's incredible. What would you say you're most grateful for when you're looking to the person that operates as a professional driver? What would you say you're most grateful for?
For the job they do and for who they are. Like, being a professional driver is a hard job, and I don't think people realize it. Like, the general public doesn't realize it. Like, they think, oh, you just drive all day. Nah, man, that's not it. Like, you're responsible for a lot of things. You're responsible for, one, your own life, two, the lives of people around you to operate this truck safely and professionally. You're also responsible for the customer's cargo on the freight. You're also responsible for the name on the door, right? Like, a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but you get some people that they forget that they're representing a company and a brand, and that company and brand signs your paycheck, right? And if you go around just operating in an unprofessional way, like, you're not doing the company any good, right? So, but like the true professionals out there, like, it's a hard job, and like, I respect them because they put in the hours, they put in the miles. You miss things, you miss birthdays, you miss anniversaries, you miss Christmas, you miss holidays, graduations. Like, you miss all the important stuff in life to keep the economy going, regardless of what industry in the trucking industry you serve, whether you're dry van, reefer, or flat deck, or heavy haul, or what, hot shot. Like, doesn't matter what it is. Like, I can't tell you the number of times we get called on the weekend to run a part up to a mine, whether it's a local mine or whether it's a mine way up north in northern BC or even in the Yukon. When they call, our service level is to show. There's no, well, we can't do it till Monday. It's no, you called us for a reason. And to be honest, like, I can't even tell you how many times, like, people have told us, like, wow, I can't believe you answered the phone. I'm like, we're a hotshot company. Of course we answer the phone. Like, that's our job. Like, that's our, that's what we get paid for. So, just yeah, like, I respect all the hardworking men and women that are on the road and even off the road. Right. So they help make the world go around.
Yeah, huge. Appreciate that. Yeah,
no
that's
worries,
real.
man.
It's real appreciation. And yeah, to me, that's one of my favorite topics, because I think a lot of times, as they're not appreciated as people or as a profession. So when people actually get it and they can highlight that, I think that's really key. So dude, honestly, I'm just so grateful that you took the time, obviously, to join me on the podcast. You hit some really massive points that I think are going to help a lot of people, which is really important to me. But also, it's nice to be able to share your story and just how you view industry, how you view basically this entire journey, but how you're kicking its ass, man. Like, I'm really excited for you. So as we end, can you just tell our listeners again, what's the best place to go if they want to do business with you, if they just want to connect with you, if they got questions, if you want to drop the website again, and we'll roll it from there.
Yeah, no worries. You can find us on all social media platforms, like all the major ones, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or even on TikTok. You can find us at our website, silverbacktransport.com. You can email myself, Colin at silverbacktransport.com. Or if you want, give us a call. You find our phone number on the website there. And yeah, just if you guys need any help with anything locally, distance, doesn't matter where it is, we're out of the Vancouver region, we'll be more than glad to help.
Awesome, man. Yeah, all links are in the show notes. And I'm so grateful, buddy. This was good. I had a really great conversation, and I'm just grateful for your leadership, and I hope business continues to be really well. So thank you again.
Oh, no worries, man. Thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate it. It's been fun.
Good. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, man. You too.
Thanks. Bye. Colin, man, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me on the Truck Focus podcast, but also for the guidance that you shared during our conversation today. I really appreciate it. So a huge takeaway from our conversation, I should say, is the importance of being mindful of how we communicate with our customers, but also with people in general. So the example that you shared, Colin, about your dad and how he operated as a professional driver for 42 years, just the memories that you have of him shaking hands, wishing people a great day. I think that really does does need to be implemented in our day-to-day interactions. So I really appreciate that. Furthermore, when you're speaking about the necessity of having a solution-focused mindset, and how you've helped so many customers out of major jams because of this mindset, I just think it's really powerful. And it's also a huge encouragement for all of us as we navigate through our day-to-day. So again, thank you so much for that. To our listeners, I definitely recommend that you learn more about Silverback Transport and Hotshot by visiting silverbacktransport.com or checking them out on all major social media platforms. Again, links are in the show notes, so make sure you go check them out and connect with Colin today. So before we end, I just wanted to say thank you again. So again, if this is the first time you've ever checked out the Truck Focus podcast, I really do welcome you to our community, but also to our dedicated community. Thank you again for showing up, for taking the advices that exactly what Colin shared today about being professional, communicating, solution focused, and applying it in your journey. I think that's really important. So thank you for that. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I did challenge you. If something that Colin said really shifted the way you thought about something or how you can attack a problem the next day, to let me know. Now is that time. So send me a message, send me an email, let me know that your thoughts and say, hey, Colin really helped me with this. But also ask that you share this episode out. So that way people in your network know, hey, check out this episode, listen to what Colin had to say, because it could probably help their journey too. Again, I'm just super grateful. Colin, thank you again for taking the time to join me. As always, let's create a pivotal impact.